Hey everyone, my name is Shanice and welcome back to my channel. Today I thought I'd piggyback off my last video, which was recommendations for the spooky month of October. I thought it would be good to give the movie equivalent of that video, and in this video I'm going to quickly recommend 20 horror, thriller, social horror films that are perfect for the month of October. I've sort of divided them into unofficial categories. One is classic horror movies, another one is social horror movies, then you have the more weird conceptual horror movies, and then just random horror movies that I couldn't really group together, but I just had some extras that I definitely wanted to recommend. And to begin, I'll start with maybe one of my favorite categories, and that is the weird and conceptual type horror movies. These are not necessarily traditional horror movies. Some are more psychological thrillers, some are just more atmospheric. They're spooky, they're kind of creepy, there's a lot of tension and suspense, but maybe they're not what some people would consider horror. The first film is one that is not going to be much of a surprise, but I'm thinking of Ending Things, which came out in 2020. It's an adaptation of the Ian Reid novel of the same name, which I haven't read. So the film starts off with a young woman and her boyfriend. They are driving through the snowy road on the way to the boyfriend, whose name is Jake, to Jake's parents' house. They're going to have dinner there. The girlfriend is going to meet his parents and just get to know his family a little bit more. So already the tension, the atmosphere is there. You have the snow, it's kind of quiet and abandoned on the road, it's late at night. So they arrive there and things start to get a little strange. So the parents are odd, the girlfriend starts noticing some weird narrative inconsistencies with what they're saying and with what Jake is saying, and she starts seeing some scratches around the house on the door frames and things like that. Things are off. And then those scenes are interspersed with scenes of this random janitor working at night in a high school. He's cleaning, and also he's watching a rehearsal of the play Oklahoma. And so basically, as the movie evolves, we start to see just how these two timelines interact with each other and just what exactly is going on. I think it's quite a sad film, and at the time I was feeling kind of sad about my life and all of that, so I thought it found a really good balance of being a thriller, of being confusing, of asking a lot of questions, but also of being basically a drama. So if that sounds like something you would like, I would definitely recommend. The next film is by one of my favorite directors, Yorgos Lanthimos, and it's called The Killing of a Sacred Deer. This one was also sort of inspired by literature. In this case, it's Iphigenia in Aulis by Euripides, and to me, this is exactly how you're supposed to retell Greek mythology and Greek literature, or really any kind of literature from anywhere. And like a few of the films that I'm gonna recommend later on in this video, by coincidence, this one features people mysteriously getting ill. So the main character is Stephen. He is a surgeon. He lives in this very beautiful house with his very beautiful wife Anna and his two kids, Kim and Bob. One day, Bob mysteriously starts losing sensation in his legs, and this coincides with Stephen meeting this stranger whose name is Martin. And then Martin and Stephen start to become friends, and things become a little strange. Stephen starts realizing that they have a lot in common, that they have shared histories, that their lives somehow interconnected in the past, in ways he hadn't known before. And it gets stranger. If you know anything about Lanthimos or you've seen his films, they're weird. The characters all speak in kind of robotic sentences. Their humor is off. And so this film, and any Lanthimos film, is not going to be for everybody, but I find the humor in that. It's very darkly funny, and the whole time you just feel uneasy. The score really helps, and just the minimalist camera movement and everything. And by that I really just mean like the camera itself doesn't really move. It zooms in and out a lot, but it's pretty stationary. So yeah, if you want to feel uneasy, then check this one out. Another more conceptual film I'll recommend is Donnie Darko. Not a surprise here, but I absolutely love this film. This is about a teenager named Donnie Darko who is a loner. He's very misunderstood. He's just having a very hard time in high school, and one day he goes sleepwalking, and fortunately for him, he avoids a major accident while he's out sleepwalking. And from that moment, he starts having these visions of this weird bunny-headed creature thing named Frank. And Frank sort of, I wouldn't say possesses Donnie Darko, but he influences him into committing several crimes. And he also convinces Donnie that the world is going to end in 28 days. So I would say if you liked the book Bunny by Mona Awad, you will absolutely love this. When I read Bunny, it automatically reminded me of this movie. Again, it's the atmosphere, it's this sort of surrealist, nonsensical vibe of the narrative. The story is completely original, and I think it's a fun one. The next film is Raw, directed by Julia Ducournau, who is the same director of the recent Palme d'Or winning film Titan. I personally think Raw is a better film, but anyway, Raw is about a young girl named Justine. She just starts veterinary school. She's a lifelong vegetarian, and when she starts school, she meets her new roommate named Adrian, and they have to go through this hazing ritual at the school, which involves them eating meat. Justine at first refuses to eat it, but is eventually forced to, and from that moment she starts craving meat, and not just non-human meat, also human flesh. Definitely watch this if you like films that explore sexuality and again have heavy atmosphere and heavy symbolism too. Some people have called it Suspiria meets Ginger Snaps, so if that sounds right up your alley, then definitely check this one out. Then I'm going to recommend Coherence, which is a bit of a low budget film. It centers around a group of friends who want to have this get together, this dinner, to celebrate the passing of Miller's Comet. So they're at this house, they're playing games, they get interrupted at one point and sort of leave the dinner setting, and when they come back, they notice that something has been shattered in the room that wasn't shattered right before they left. And so from that moment, they start getting a little bit paranoid about what potentially could have caused that, who else may be with them in this house. The whole film is basically set in this one place. This movie explores the idea of parallel universes and doubles, doppelgangers, that kind of deal. I think it's fantastic, and I haven't heard too many people talk about this one. I also want to recommend Green Room, which stars Patrick Stewart along with the late Anton Yelchin and Alia Shawkat, amongst many others. This one is basically about a band. Their gig is canceled at the last minute, and so they are moved to this other club. They agree to it. Once they get there, they realize that it's a neo-Nazi club, but they need money, so they decide to play anyway. And while they are there, they witness a murder. And from that moment, basically all the skinheads want to kill them because they witnessed the murder. So this is more of a slasher, thriller, horror movie, a little bit more traditional than the ones I have just mentioned, but I think it's great nonetheless. But I would say be aware that this is quite graphic, so if you're into that, check this one out. The next group of films I'm going to talk about are the more social horror type movies, which is my favorite category, it turns out. This is what I love. So the first one I think is a masterpiece. I'm sure you guys have seen it. It's Get Out, directed by Jordan Peele. It won the Oscar for Best Original Screenplay, well deserved, I think. It is about a young man named Chris who is a photographer. His girlfriend's name is Rose. He's meeting her parents for the first time, and he's very nervous, so he asks her just outright if she's told her parents that he's black, and she says, no, I haven't, but I don't really need to because, they're very liberal, they're very cultured, they're not racist at all, so it's not going to be a problem. He has his doubts, but he loves Rose, so he just goes along with it, and things go wrong from there. One of the best movie experiences I've ever had is watching this in a theater with other people. The ending, I mean, everyone just erupted. I've watched this like 4 times and it never gets old. I think it's far superior to Us. I haven't seen Nope, but I kind of have a feeling that Get Out is just the masterpiece of all the Peele movies out so far. But whatever he directs, I'm watching. And yeah, just watch Get Out if you haven't. You're definitely missing out. I think this managed to blend racial commentary with horror in just a very special and thrilling way. And also, two of my favorite actors, Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield, are in here, and I mean, I think they should be in every movie. The next one is one I watched during the pandemic. I mean, I guess we're still sort of in a pandemic, but in 2020, I watched this, and it's called The Platform. It's a Spanish movie about this facility that houses subjects, experiment subjects. We're not totally sure what the basis for the setting is, but essentially there's this building. On each floor, there are two cellmates, and we don't know how many floors are in this building, but we do know that there are many floors. And the basic premise is that on each floor, there's like this big hole in the middle, and every day a platform goes from the top floor all the way to the bottom carrying food. So the top floor, whatever number floor that is, those people get all the food. The whole table is full. They can eat whatever they want, however much they want, and gradually the table with food lowers to the next floor, and then those people eat whatever they want. And so it just keeps lowering and lowering. And so basically, if you're on the bottom floor, you get bones because no one has left you anything to eat. And so clearly, this is a commentary on classes, on elitism, on wealth inequality. But it's told in just a very thrilling social drama kind of way. This one is also a bit graphic, so just be aware of that. But I think it was quite the film to watch in 2020 because that's definitely the year when we saw a lot of the ills of our society made worse because of the pandemic. And so I think this film just touches on those very issues very well, very originally. I really liked it. Next up, we have Candyman, the original Candyman. I haven't seen last year's adaptation, although that is definitely on my to-watch list. But Candyman deals with a graduate art student who's doing her thesis on this urban legend of a ghost. If you say his name 5 times, he shows up and kills you. The ghost is of a former slave who was murdered because he was in a relationship with a white woman. And so the graduate student is doing her dissertation on this and wants to find out more information about who this ghost has haunted and why, what his story is, all of that. This focuses on themes of race and social class and is set in Chicago and definitely uses the Cabrini Green public housing as the foundation for the social criticism happening in here. I was delightfully surprised by this. I thought it was going to be a bit outdated. And yeah, sure, there are some parts that maybe are, but overall, I actually think it's very relevant to today, and very creepy too. I also want to recommend the movie The Wailing. It follows some police officers who are discovering and investigating these strange, mysterious illnesses that are happening in this town. The illnesses cause people to kind of go crazy and kill their family members, and these strange illnesses have coincided with the introduction of a Japanese stranger into this small village in South Korea. So I think it's pretty clear this is going to explore some of the Japanese-Korean tensions, and also social class and the justice system, as well as mental illnesses and all of that. So it is a very long movie, but I was riveted the entire way. This has some demonic possession, some exorcism type things, some police investigation, so it just checked all of my boxes. The last film in this category I think is a good one to end on because it transitions to the next category, which is the classic horror movies, very nicely, and it's called The Love Witch, which is kind of an homage to 1960s Technicolor films and horror films. This is about Elaine, who is a witch, who may or may not be responsible for the death of her previous husband. She's on a mission to fall in love and get a new man, and so the movie just follows her using her spells and her charm to get a man. But this has a look into contemporary gender roles. It's very funny, it's very playful, it's kind of dark, and the main actress looks and sounds like Lana Del Rey. So if that sounds like your vibe, check that one out. Moving on to the classic category, I have to recommend Carrie, which is based on Stephen King's first novel. What is there to say about this? This is about Carrie White, who is very, very, very bullied in high school. She recently has discovered that she has telekinetic powers, and she's going to use that to enact revenge on her high school bullies. This has elements of the gothic and supernatural, and I was pleasantly surprised by this. I have not read the novel. I've heard some mixed reviews. I'm also just, I don't know, kind of hit or miss with Stephen King. But as for the movie, I highly recommend. Next is another movie that is based on a book. It's Jaws. Stay as far away from the book as you possibly can. The book is trash, but the movie is not. The quick summary is that you have a police officer, a marine biologist, and a professional shark hunter teaming up together to fight and defeat this great big white shark that is attacking a bunch of people in this beach town over the summer. This touches on the class anxieties in a post-Watergate American society, and it's fun, it's thrilling, it is creepy, and there's a lot of symbolism working here. Next we have Carnival of Souls, which has influenced Lucretia Martel and David Lynch and George A. Romero. This one is about a young woman who survives a car crash. She moves to a new city, and there she's unable to make new friends and just blend in with the town. She's having a lot of anxiety, and this anxiety is reflected in the affinity that she finds with this abandoned local carnival. And she starts being stalked and followed by this weird man who is actually played by the director. And there are very few films that I think capture social anxiety very well, but this is one of them. And then I want to close off this section with two essential German expressionistic films. One is Nosferatu, which is an unofficial adaptation of Dracula by Bram Stoker, and the other is The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Both are silent films, but don't let that put you off. They're just as thrilling as anything put out today, if not maybe more thrilling than some movies out today, and are great examples of how mise-en-scène and the environment, the set, the production can actually reflect the topsy-turvy nature of the psychological tension going on. So check both of those out, I implore you. This last category is the one where the films don't really make sense together, but I want to recommend them anyway. First is Black Swan. I know this is not a perfect film, and this is sort of an unofficial adaptation of The Devil by Dostoevsky. It's not the most original story. It also isn't the best representation of the ballet world, but I love it. I don't know what to say. I think Natalie Portman gives one of her best performances of all time, one of my favorite performances ever, and I could just pop it on and enjoy it as if it was the first time I was watching it. Next, I want to recommend Rec, or R-E-C, or Record. It's a Spanish movie. This one, there was an English language adaptation called Quarantine, so this was perfect to watch during quarantine itself a few years ago. And yeah, people suddenly get ill, they are trapped in this apartment building, they can't get out, and soon people in the apartment building seem to be getting infected with this mysterious illness, and the people within have to fend for themselves and fight to survive, essentially. And they're using these night vision cameras, which is where the title comes from, to record what's happening and communicate with each other. So yeah, it was very odd and surreal to see this during a real life pandemic and quarantine. Then I'm going to recommend The Others, which is a supernatural psychological horror in the vein of The Turn of the Screw, which I personally hate, but that's neither here nor there. But The Others is a really brilliant way of turning that traditional tale upside down. It stars Nicole Kidman. She was also in The Killing of a Sacred Deer. so you might just want to have a Nicole Kidman marathon if you want. This has a fantastic twist near the end. And lastly, I want to recommend The Host, which is, I think, the only monster movie here. So in this film, which is a South Korean film, there's this big, huge monster in the water that kidnaps a young girl, and the movie follows her father and her family and others helping to rescue her from this monster. It looks at xenophobia, it looks at what monsters usually represent, but it's just expert filmmaking, and I just highly recommend anything that Bong Joon-ho has directed. And that is all for my October movie recommendations. I hope you found something in this random collection of films that sounds like something you might like. Please comment down below. Tell me if you have watched one of these films. Which ones do you like? What other ones would you recommend? What are you planning on watching in October? I know I love just trying to watch at least one scary movie every day in the month. We'll see what happens this year and which ones I will discover. Thank you so much for watching, and like and subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye.